These are the best Boss RC-300 hidden features that you didn't know that will help you get the most out of your loop station and do things you never knew were possible. First, let's change the functionality of this loop effects Footswitch. This is kind of pointless when it comes to the Boss RC-300, mainly because the onboard effects are pretty awful. Like, this unit did come out in 2011, so they sound very dated compared to what you could get from a more modern Boss RC-600, RC-505 Mark II, or even an external unit that you could plug into this thing. So most musicians don't use the onboard effects, which then means this redundant pedal here just does absolutely nothing on your loop station. But you can actually reassign this pedal to do some secret little settings. If you aren't aware, on the Boss RC-300, there are 3 different menus. You have got system settings, memory settings, track settings, and also technically rhythm settings. If we jump into our memory edit button, they also take us into our memory phase settings, which are basically memory bank specific parameters that we can change. So on each preset 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, we can create custom settings for that particular bank and save it, allowing you to create different presets and different combinations and cocktails of settings on this loop station. So let's jump into our memory setting parameters and scroll all the way to the end of this menu to our assign controls. We've got a total of 8 controller assigns that we can use on the RC-300, and this essentially lets us reprogram what certain buttons are doing and also set up external foot switches and external expression pedals. Now this button right here is the pointless button that we don't really have any function for. So what we can actually do is we can go into assign source, for example, assign source 1, or you could set this up on assign source 2 because that's maybe not using something. You can find which one is basically empty on your current patch. So let's use assign source 1, and we're going to go ahead and change this to be loop effects pedal as the source. This is going to be the source for the input, the pedal that we are currently changing. Once we've correctly selected our source as loop effects pedal, this one right here, we want to scroll over to the left where we can change the target. This is going to be the parameter that it controls. So right now this is effects control, which is obviously going to turn our effects on and off. We could set this to be like a all clear style command. So for an example sake here, I've got a loop on track 3. So I could set this to be clear for track 3. Now straight away, this is not going to work. There's an extra setting that we need to change inside of our system settings, which are our global parameters. So whatever we change in this menu will be applied to absolutely everything on our loop station, regardless if you're on patch 1 or patch 87, patch 99, patch 23. In here, scroll over to the right, and on the loop effects pedal, which is this pedal right here, by default, this will be set to loop effects on and off plus assign. You want to change this to be assign only because this will then disable the onboard effects on the RC-300 so you won't accidentally trigger them during a performance, so it makes it completely stress-free. Now if we exit out and go ahead and press this button, you will see it will clear off that loop track with a single press. You don't need to press and hold it. You don't need to mess about clearing all the individual tracks. Bang, one press and it's cleared out our preset. Now you do need to make sure that you then save this by pressing the right button, right again, renaming it, whatever, and saving it to the memory patch, because as soon as I change patch here and then come back, it will have lost that assign change because this is a memory bank specific parameter. Now switching our focus to our track settings, let's take a look at loop reverse. On each individual loop track, 1, 2, and 3, we have got edit buttons dedicated to each loop station. Each of these edit buttons can be used to customize different parameters on each loop track, whether that be effects assign or all sorts of other things. The play mode of that loop track, the length of that loop track with the measures, how it stops, the level, the record level. There's lots of cool things you can do here. The sync of it as well, awesome stuff. One of the settings I want us to focus on is reverse. Right here, setting 2 in this menu, we can enable something called loop reverse, which essentially is going to flip and invert our loop track and play it backwards. So if we go ahead and take a little listen to this, you will hear that this loop track is playing backwards, which is creating a cool sonic sort of soundscape that you can maybe guitar solo over or do some vocals over, or maybe add additional layers onto it. Very good for ambient looping and that type of stuff. If we then disable the reverse, you can hear this is it playing it the correct way around. Now you can use external foot switches or even the loop effects assign that I just showed you to enable and disable this reverse effect on particular loop tracks, so you can initiate it and deactivate it in relevant parts of your performance. Next, let's take a look at my favorite feature on the Boss RC-300, and it's very useful in this particular example because I can't control this pedal with my feet right now. When you usually use your loop station, obviously you press the record button, the play button, and so on to go ahead and do your performance. But the issue is here, my hands are occupied with the guitar and my loop station's on the tabletop, so I can't really get my feet up to control this bad boy. we can use a setting that's called auto start record, where essentially we can prepare the pedal by pressing the record button, and then we can go walk off, go to the side of the stage, go somewhere else in this room to the keyboard, the drums or whatever. And then as soon as I play the first note or beat, it will then start recording automatically for me, then allowing me to press the button when I'm ready, or even predetermine the length of the loop by using our track settings and diving in to our measure count and basically saying how long this loop needs to be in preparation. Then it will automatically play once it's completed that measure count. The way we're going to do this is in our memory settings. We're going to scroll over to the right and you'll find this option here, which is called auto record. We're going to go ahead and enable this by just turning that value knob to the right once, boom, it's now activated. We can then go ahead into our system settings, scroll over to the right, and in here, we can then change the sensitivity of the trigger. I think by default, it's set to about 70. But if this is too sensitive, i.e. like you've got an acoustic guitar with some really fancy mics in and it literally triggers as soon as you press record and you're like, oh, that's not good enough, you can reduce the threshold so it's less sensitive, or even increase it if it is not strong enough. So now when I go ahead and press record on this Footswitch, it'll flash. You can see how it's flashing there. That says that it is preparing to loop. As soon as I play a note on this guitar and input anything into the loop station via the connected devices, it will start recording. And you can see there, we've got a perfect loop. It started right on the one as soon as I struck that first chord. This is great if you're a beginner and struggling a little bit with your timing as well. You maybe got your coordination off with the loop station, you're not quite hitting that one. It allows you to get used to that, prepare the pedal, always be perfect on that first strike, and then just be in charge of initiating the playback. Now this is probably one of the coolest features you can do on the Boss RC-300 that not many musicians actually know about. This is expanding the available inputs you have on the looper pedal. Obviously you've got the two main inputs and the microphone input, which work great. But if you're using multiple instruments like bass, keyboard, drums, and so many other things, a sampler, you're not going to have enough inputs to place them into the loop station. And the newer pedals like the RC-505 Mark II, RC-600, obviously have way more inputs and outputs, giving you this flexibility to leverage multi-instrumental looping. Well, thankfully, you can actually use an external mixer to expand the inputs on your loop station, which is actually really easy to set up, and it can give you as many inputs as you like. We've got this huge mixer here, I think it's got like 12 inputs or something crazy on it. So we can go to town with the amount of instruments that we are using. So with this Yamaha MG12XU, this has got all of our inputs up here, so we can plug in additional instruments if required. And also we can route multiple outputs over here. So we can route the loop station actually into here for our performance on the master output. But then also we can use this group 1 and 2 to actually send a group out separately. So it'll send a separate audio and mix into our loop station, which is really cool. So we can go ahead and take two little simple cables like this, your standard little guitar jack cables, and you can just plug these into the main input and output on the Boss RC-300. And then we can route these over to our mixer and we can plug them in to the left and right output. Once those are then plugged in to the mixer, you can go ahead and add all of your extra inputs into here, create a custom mix with that as well, which gives you way more versatility than even the newer Boss loop stations do. When you have multiple inputs on them, you have them on the fly, you can create a live mix. And then by controlling these master outputs, you can then send an output of this mixer straight into your loop station and then route the loop station into a separate mixing console, front of house, engineer, or whatever it is that you need. And then this allows you to have EQ, effects, all these different things that will actually enable you to craft a way better looping performance, because you can create space within the mix with the EQing of the frequencies. So then each instrument just isn't stacked flat on top of each other. It actually comes into the loop pedal pre-mixed with reverb on it or whatever it is that you want, and then gets outputted from the RC-300 into the main speakers. Now, if you want to know about more awesome features just like this, you should check out my Boss RC-300 Ultimate Guide. I have thousands of students that have taken my Ultimate Guide series where I take them through every single setting on Boss pedals. For example, the Boss RC-300, I cover every setting that it can do, advanced things like hacks like this that you didn't even realize were possible, in a series of videos with hours of on-demand tutorials that you can watch whenever you like. But if you still want to learn about some more beginner things you can do with your loop station, and you want some of the best tips for improving your timing and also your performance, you should check out this video next, because if you like this, you'll like that.